Hey guys, welcome back. As you can see from the title, in this video I will be painting my 5 favorite books of the year onto some little clay ornaments. So I made ornaments similar to this last year, but they were just kind of typical Christmas shapes and colors and stuff, and this year I decided that I would adapt that idea and bring some arts and crafts to the channel. And in this way I can kind of commemorate my 5 favorite books onto these little ornaments. So as you saw, I started out with some little blank clay ornaments that I had cut out of clay and dried. I honestly just used the Crayola air dry stuff, and I'm sure you could also find like blanks or other materials to make stuff like this out of at a craft store or something, but I just wanted to use what I had from last year. So for this, my 5th favorite book of the year, I needed to start with a pink base and then started to add some white and orange details. If you haven't figured out already from the video or the thumbnail, this book is The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. I love this little ornament just as much as I love this book. It is by far the most adorable of the 5 ornaments, and that's saying something because the other ornaments are really dang cute too. The story itself is a graphic novel following the story of a prince who likes to put on dresses and the journey that he and his dressmaker go on to help him wear what he wants and feel like himself. It's an absolutely beautiful story with stunning illustrations, and so I really couldn't resist putting it in my top 5 books of 2019. A little bit more about the ornament, guys. This ornament was so small and the font was so hard to get to look right that I was afraid to try and paint the finer details of the prince and his dressmaker, like that little image of them, onto the actual painting that I'd already done. So what I decided to do was kind of cheat. I went and printed out the cover and just pasted the little image onto the ornament so that I didn't ruin what I had already done, because it had taken me a really long time, guys. These ornaments are tiny, and in retrospect, I probably should have cut them a bit bigger, but I'm not really mad at their size because it makes them super adorable, so I don't know, it's kind of a win, kind of a lose, whatever. Anyways, that is my 5th favorite book of the year, The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. Next up, we've got my 4th favorite book of the year and the ornament that I had the most fun making. I loved making this one because I got to do a really loose style landscape painting that was whimsical and looks absolutely adorable on this little clay canvas. Also, if you guys are wondering, I'm using Liquitex Basics acrylic paints. I found that these ones and the Artist's Loft acrylic paints are the ones that adhere to the clay best. So if you guys are interested in doing something similar to this yourselves, I do recommend those kinds of paints. As for the book itself, this one landed its way into my heart for numerous reasons. It's a really imaginative story, with compelling characters and fairy tale-like themes. If you haven't already guessed, this one is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This was my 2nd ever Seanan McGuire read, and guys, her storytelling style has me hooked. I love how spunky and out of the box her writing style feels, and I find that her books will often send me off on long trains of thought that I never would have had if not for her imaginative and vivid storytelling. Guys, if you haven't read this book, I highly suggest you give it a chance. At under 200 pages, it's both quick and fun to read, and I can't recommend it enough. And my 3rd place book of this year is actually a bit surprising to me, because for a long time, this book was my number 1 favorite. For this one, we started with a black base coat and some delicate white outline work to get the basic shapes. I was honestly just really thankful that this cover was so simple, because some of these ornaments were taking forever. I think this ornament actually turned out the most like the cover of the book for that very reason. If you guys couldn't tell, this one is another Seanan McGuire read. I am of course talking about Middlegame. This one came out in 2019, and so it is fairly new, and I'd like to shout out Kayla from Books and Lala for mentioning this book an insane amount of times in her videos, because it convinced me to pick this one up, and here we are. This story was strange and fantastical and spooky and just so incredibly thought-provoking. I couldn't go a page without having some insane wisdom bestowed upon me in this book. The amount of examination of human nature that's worked into this book kept me intrigued and asking questions all the way through all 528 pages of this one. And I don't really like long books, so that's saying something. I loved every second of this thrilling, quirky, creepy fantasy. Highly recommend. Alright, in the runner-up spot for Best Book of the Year, we have a book that just makes me smile. So this was a book that I read early on in the year, and so I didn't really recognize it as a favorite until recently when I was scrolling through my Goodreads, looking at my 2019 reads, and I realized just how much this book made me smile. This was a fairly intricate book cover, and so I decided to print out the picture of the author, which is on the cover of the book, and paste it on there because I wasn't about to destroy that person's face with paint. This is definitely a simplified version of the cover, but I think it's a pretty close match nonetheless. My second favorite book of the year was Neil Patrick Harris's Choose Your Own Autobiography. This one is exactly what it sounds like. Neil Patrick Harris basically takes you through his life in the format of a choose-your-own adventure novel, and it's marvelous. I listened to this one on audiobook, and I adored every second of his narration. His theater background really shines on this one, and if you're a fan of NPH in the slightest, you'll find listening to his life story really enjoyable. He's hilarious throughout pretty much the whole book, and sometimes you just need a book that makes you laugh, and that's why this one is in my number 2 spot. It's time for my favorite book of the year, and I think this one will be the hardest to recognize. This ornament is probably my least favorite visually. I think by this point I was just getting tired, and it's really a shame because the book has a really beautiful cover. Regardless, I am still happy to hang this little ornament on my tree because it reminds me of my favorite book of 2019. Here I'm talking about The Feather Thief by Kirk Wallace Johnson. This one is a non-fiction true crime book about a young man who decided that one day he was going to steal some rare bird skins from a museum. And it's amazing. This book brought together my love of natural history with a mysterious and sometimes downright suspenseful true crime story. I loved that the author seemed to take a real interest in the subject matter of the book. It was a nonfiction book that read like fiction. If you guys find it hard to get into nonfiction, I would definitely recommend this book, because there were numerous times that I had to check that I was in fact listening to a nonfiction story. I know the subject matter might sound weird for some people, but guys, it was so cool. Please, please, please pick this book up. Let's get more people on Booktube talking about this one. It was spectacular. So guys, those were my 5 favorite books of the year. Let me know your favorites down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, definitely like and subscribe for future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!